Ladies and gentlemen, today we give you the secrets to spending the least amount of time to build the highest quality adventure in Dungeons & Dragons using Foundry Virtual Tabletop. Together, we will build a fantastic adventure from start to finish. We need 3 essential ingredients to create a fantastic player-driven story. We must give our players interesting challenges, freedom of choice, and reward their ideas. Every player is unique and they prefer different D&D gameplay styles. Therefore, we recommend asking your players if they enjoy combat, social interactions, or exploration. These are the 3 pillars of D&D that form the foundation of the game. For example, maybe our players enjoy combat and exploration the most, and social interactions to a moderate degree. Thus, we aim for 30% of the adventure to be combat, 30% to be exploration, and 20% to be social interactions. The next step is asking your players what their favorite D&D moments and D&D challenges are. This will give you a good idea of what kind of adventures your players enjoy. I added a few examples that I use in my games on screen. At the bottom, I included a few general adventure types. There are a lot of different adventure themes and mission types available, so this will narrow the options to the best selection. Then we customize our adventure to be a hybrid of what we enjoy and what the players enjoy. This balances our creativity with what the players are comfortable with, so everyone enjoys the game. This is very helpful for starting D&D campaigns on a solid foundation. As you become more familiar and friendly with your players, you can be more creative. For example, let's say our players love exploring dungeons and finding ancient magical items. We can use this as inspiration to craft our adventure. Maybe we have our players explore an ancient Fey forest in an age-long past, an expedition of legendary heroes journeying into this perilous expanse, never to return. The leader of the expedition carried a magical relic granted to him by the last archmage of our kingdom. Can you discover the fate of this lost voyage? As a dungeon master, I enjoy the Feywild setting because I don't get to experience it often as a player. Thus, we combine what we love with what the players love to make this adventure hook. Our next step is introducing the goal of the adventure and what is at stake. We should inform our players what the objective is because it gives them purpose. They need a sense of direction to navigate our world, otherwise our players will not know what to do. They also need to know why the mission is important because it helps them personally engage in the story. We want our players to care about our heroes. This is what makes great movies like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Game of Thrones memorable. Going back to our adventure, let's add these elements. Our people are suffering from the plague of undeath. The Oracle has seen the future and discovered a way to save our people. In an age long past, an expedition of legendary heroes journeyed into the Sapphire Forest, never to return. The leader of the expedition carried a magical grail granted him by the last archmage of our kingdom. All the brave heroes of our kingdom have been summoned here today to discover the fate of this lost voyage and recover the grail. Whoever succeeds in returning this legendary item shall be granted the king's promise to their heart's greatest desire. Now let's add the next essential ingredient to our adventure. We should give our players freedom of choice to decide how to achieve their adventure goal. This is important because it empowers our players from being spectators to being active participants. Your players will be more expressive and creative as a result of this freedom. Going back to our adventure, we need to give our players the tools to create a plan of action. Our first step is creating an interactive world map. This lets our players know where the destination is and foreshadow the types of obstacles along the way. This makes the world more realistic and tangible. Any unknown locations or points of interest on the map can generate excitement and mystery in the story. If you don't know how to do this, I made a step-by-step tutorial on my channel. Just scroll down and click Frosty Austin if you want to learn. Add a comment if you have any questions. In our adventure, our heroes must travel northward, past an overgrown forest, overcome the deadly goblin tribes, and navigate the dark marsh before arriving at Sapphire Forest. This sounds challenging on a good day, but our kingdom is also suffering from the plague of undeath that kills the infected and revives them as undead. This has corrupted 2 of our most populous cities, Inverness and Baraxiel. They are now bastions of undead, host to swarms of deadly monstrosities that are actively besieging Fortress Egrain to the east. Our kingdom's last archmage, Merlin is successfully defending Shield Fortress to the north against a malevolent lich, but he is surrounded. Our army is spread out around Ring City and Fortress Egrain to evacuate the citizens and prepare for siege. At this point, our players should understand the main challenges of the adventure. There are legions of undead marching toward your home. You should expect numerous undead hunter-killer groups and swarms of desperate refugees infected with the plague. This makes any exploration, combat, or social interaction extremely deadly. The next step is creating those challenges. My recommendation is to make one combat encounter, exploration challenge, and social interaction per vote from your players. Then add a few more depending on your own personal preferences. This gives you a pool of player-inspired challenges to add to your adventure. During the game session, you will select a few of these challenges to occur during the adventure depending on your players' choices. My recommendation is to actively listen to your players' ideas and select an encounter that is appropriate for what your players do. This system balances the flexibility of a sandbox adventure with the narrative structure of a railroad adventure. You can adjust your campaign toward being a railroad or sandbox depending on the number of encounters and challenges you prepare beforehand. If your players are predictable or you are feeling tired, then prepare less challenges beforehand. If your players are creative or you're feeling adventurous, then prepare more beforehand. Each encounter is modular, so you can reuse your work in the future adventures to maximize time efficiency. It is extremely easy to make. All you need to do is follow these main bullet points. For exploration type challenges, you will need a battle map or piece of art. You want your players to visualize what they are exploring and discovering. I recommend introducing the location with a short description of what your players see, hear, touch, smell, and or taste. This might occur when your players are navigating a dungeon or investigating new locations or discovering clues as to what created this plague of undeath. Please add a note explaining how terrain can affect combat and tell your players about it if combat breaks out. For example, stone walls give characters full cover and trees give characters partial cover. Tell them that there are other tactics available if you are creative enough to use them. This will encourage your players to think tactically and use their imagination in combat. I prefer this over traditional combat where players just run at each other and attack in a brain-dead way. I recommend adding a few secrets to each location, so if your players perform the right actions, they get a reward. This might be treasure, or secrets, or a safe place to rest, etc. This brings us to our last essential ingredient to our adventure, which is rewarding your players for their ideas. As Dungeon Masters, we need to take the lead on this. If we can set the tone for the campaign, the other players will follow us and create a friendly environment. We want games that make everyone smile and feel good. Help them enjoy their time in your campaign by showing appreciation for their ideas, even if the ideas are kinda dumb. Everyone makes stupid choices sometimes, but the important thing is making them feel welcome despite that. I recommend adding these ideas into your game, but throw in some complications. Try to keep the complications reasonable and achievable within 1 to 3 game sessions, depending on the difficulty of the idea. Going back to our adventure, I will use a battle map of the Feywild to create an exploration challenge for when the players navigate the Sapphire Forest. Our heroes will encounter a fallen treant that is bleeding blue luminous liquid into a stream. The nearby mushrooms have grown gigantic from absorbing the pine-scented liquid and have a faint ocean blue glow. There are several rotting tree trunks nearby, and one of them has a secret. One of the legendary heroes died in that trunk, and his nutrients were absorbed into the earth. He appears to be afflicted with dark magic. In his pack, our players discover a few personal messages to his wife that hint at his secret mission, and a map of where they were going. Our players discover that the legendary heroes of the past were under orders from the king to take this magical grail and use it to extract all the life force from the elder treant of Sapphire Forest. They wanted to create a potion of immortality for the royal family, and they didn't care how many treants they killed to achieve their goal. This discovery will create a moral crisis for any good aligned characters and foreshadow the final boss at the end of the game. Take a second to tell me what you think the final boss will be. For combat encounters, we need 4 elements to make it a success. We need to prepare the monsters our players will be fighting beforehand and decide how many of each there are. My recommendation is to keep this number between 2 and 10 so each round of combat is relatively short. For monsters, I usually take standard creatures out of the SRD and customize their abilities and artwork to give my players a unique and memorable experience. I craft the tactics to match each monster's culture, wealth, occupation, and personality. I give the monsters a thematic goal and prepare a reward that balances what my players want with what that monster might reasonably carry. Returning to our adventure, our heroes encounter a group of refugees fleeing the approaching undead legions. They are from all walks of life, including a few wounded deserters, merchants, farmers, and common folk. They are running from a pack of bloodthirsty peasant zombies and calling out for help. Their goal is to get the players to kill the zombies for them and to escort them to Ring City. For tactics, the zombies are driven by the instinct to spread the plague. They will target the weak and sick. When the first zombie injures a player, he will scream in delight, and all the zombies will immediately focus on that player. This creates a bit of a cat and mouse game, which gives your heroes a chance to exploit their tunnel vision. Furthermore, our zombies have a slam attack that forces the victim to make a DC 10 strength saving throw or become grappled. The players are awarded with critical information on the journey ahead if the refugees survive. They learn that some of the undead are riding skeleton warhorses. Some of the plague victims appear to be alive on the outside, but are actually soulless vessels that are controlled by a higher, malevolent power. They give people purple vials, saying they are health potions, but they are actually spreading the plague. In addition, the craftsmen and merchants are willing to give away high-quality armor, caltrops, and a real potion of healing in exchange for escorting them to safety. Escorting them would cost our heroes several full days of travel. What would you do? For successful social interactions, we need to craft goals, role-playing tips, rewards, and enable future interactions. The goals represent what the non-player characters want from the interaction. For example, merchants and craftsmen talk with travelers to sell their wares. We need to give our non-player characters purpose in the world, otherwise they will seem out of place. The next step is giving each character role-playing keywords. These keywords describe their personality and unique character quirks. This adds variety and spice to different interactions to bring the world to life. Not every merchant or knight or goblin is the same. Every social interaction should have a reward. Rewards encourage our players to explore the world you have created and engage in the story. In addition, you should give your players a reason to interact with this non-player character in the future. This leads to future character development and more emotional attachment to the world within your campaign. Your reason to interact doesn't need to be the promise of money or services. You can also offer them information or friendship or even jokes. Do something that makes your players want to come back. The key is to create multiple reasons for the players to interact with your characters. Give them at least 3 and probably more reasons to pay them a visit. Maybe give them a future quest, or an invitation to attend the theater, or the promise of free advice. Going back to our adventure, maybe you ask the king for items, soldiers, horses, and equipment to increase the mission's probability of success. He wants to help, but his resources are spread thin. The elites want to invest in the best heroes only. The main challenge here is persuading him that your party is a better investment than all the other brave heroes gathered here, and a better investment than the noble armies defending Fortress Agrain. The elites are formal, pompous, and prideful. How would you persuade him? These are just 3 example challenges for our adventure. I'm going to give you the opportunity to create your own exploration challenges, combat challenges, and social interactions in this adventure. Here is some inspiration. After our heroes leave Ring City, we can turn westward on the old road and discover the fate of the goblin tribes. Hopefully, the undead and goblins have obliterated each other and we can stealthily navigate past the ruins of Inverness to the Dark Marsh. Your players should have a feeling it won't be that easy. Maybe the goblins are using hit-and-run tactics to successfully fight off hordes of zombies. This could be your chance to negotiate with Chief Pepe of the Goblin tribes for safe passage through their lands. They are enemies of your people, but desperate times might convince them to help. Maybe you want to push your luck and ask for a temporary alliance between the Goblin tribes and Ring City. If you want them to give you resources, you might need to share the details of your mission. Maybe they decide to kill you and steal the Grail for themselves. Let's go back to the branch in the road. What if our heroes travel along the eastern road and take the North Passage to Logan's Watermill? Hopefully, the army of Eggrain has beaten back the undead legions and secured safe passage to Sapphire Forest. Your players should have a feeling it won't be that easy. Maybe the undead are building terrifying siege engines and the surrounding forest is swarming with skeleton lumberjacks. The river is tainted with a strange purple chemical that is used in their siege projectiles. What does this do to the trees and wheat fields? Maybe Logan's Watermill is the undead's base of operations? You decide. After breaking through the overgrown forest, we encounter the dark marsh. This is a twisting maze of swamps, tangled mangrove trees, and suffocating fog. Inside its depths lies the Black Dragon of Nether, who is an evil, violent coward bent on dominating the kingdom. He fears the undead and secretly wants things to return to normal so he can rule the swamps. If our heroes play their cards right, the Black Dragon of Nether can fly them to Sapphire Forest free of charge. Maybe your players discover a new dungeon in the marsh that leads into the Underdark, or rescue a party of other brave heroes. If our players mention that they are retrieving a legendary grail, then the Black Dragon of Nether will ambush them after they leave Sapphire Forest and steal the grail. He is evil and greedy. Please warn your players and foreshadow this confrontation. After traversing the Feywild within Sapphire Forest, we finally arrive at our destination. We discover a magical hidden valley. The air is enchanted with songs of serenity and sparkling light. A community of wildlife, druids, and treants live here. At the center of the valley, you see a withered oak tree. Tangled in its roots lie the skeletal remains of the previous expedition. You see atop the decayed oak tree a crystal chalice made of pure pinkish diamond. It is filled to the brim with golden nectar. A venerable archdruid appears and tells you what happened here. The legendary heroes of the past murdered our beloved eldest treant. We used magic to probe their minds and discovered that they were under orders from their king to murder us. He wanted to use that evil grail to extract our life force in order to selfishly craft a potion of immortality. Why have you come here? Now you face the greatest challenge of all. You must persuade this community to give up the grail to save your people from a plague that isn't affecting them. You must convince them to do this based on nothing but the word of your king, whom they consider a murderer. I have no idea how your players will do this. Will you be complicit in murder and theft for your king? What happens if you cannot persuade the community to return the magical grail? The venerable archdruid Radagast offers you an alternative plan. If you escort him and the grail to the North Lake, he can end the plague by enchanting the water with the cure. The purifying waters will flow down the rivers and streams to Ring City and lay to rest all undead animated by the plague. However, the grail must remain there forever. Your challenge will be avoiding the other brave heroes of the realm that seek the grail, evading the malevolent, power-hungry lich, and eluding the Black Dragon of Nether. What would you do? Scroll down and declare what you would do in the video comments section. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Please consider giving the video a thumbs up. It helps a lot.